Bonanno contacted his older cousin, Stefano Magaddino, who was running his own rackets in upstate Buffalo, New York, and who considered himself the most senior leader of the Castellamarese immigrants. Magaddino came down to the city prepared to defend his younger cousin's honor and demonstrate his own authority. But at the sit-down, Magaddino did not get a chance to play the role of godfather and peacemaker, because Joe's new mentor, Maranzano, jumped to the young man's defense.
Maranzano said, wait a minute. Here's the guy that was protecting what is his. How can we fault him for that?
The other gangsters agreed. Joe was exonerated. Now it was Joe's cousin, Magaddino, the black sheep of the family back in Sicily, who felt humiliated, dishonored, and denied the respect he thought he deserved.
What developed out of that meeting was an insatiable jealousy on the part of Stefano Magaddino toward my father. Here was this younger whippersnapper cousin of mine coming from the old country, and immediately he's now in the good graces of quote-unquote important people in New York.
The bitter Stefano retreated to upstate New York, but as Joe's stature continued to grow, so did his cousin's resentment. By 1930, Joe had carved out a coveted role as Maranzano's chief aide. Though not yet a man of respect, he was a man to be reckoned with.
Joe had presence, he had charisma, he had that undefinable quality that makes people defer to a leader.
We would sit in his study and discuss Mediterranean history, discuss modern history, discuss politics, discuss opera. He was truly a Renaissance man.
At 25 years old, Joe's charm and smarts had taken him far, but he had yet to be tested in battle. Bonanno would get his chance as the New York underworld erupted in street warfare. Wielding a machine gun to fight for his clan, Joe would become a full-fledged gangster, and in the process, win a place for himself at the founding of the modern American Mafia. By the time he was 25 years old, Joe Bonanno was a successful bootlegger and a rising leader in the New York underworld. His mentor, Salvatore Maranzano, even made Joe his chief aide. Now he wanted Bonanno to marry his own daughter. But Joe was already in love with Fay Labruzzo, a quiet seamstress with a dry sense of humor. The courtship was interrupted in 1930 when an old Sicilian feud reignited in the streets of Brooklyn and Manhattan. It got so dangerous that Joe kissed his girlfriend goodbye. He bought himself a bulletproof Cadillac equipped with built-in submachine guns and went into hiding. Bonanno and his cronies were fighting against the most powerful Italian gangster in all of New York, Joe the Boss Masseria. The tightly knit Castellamarese were becoming too independent for the power-hungry Masseria. As the bodies piled up, the gangsters were losing profits and losing patience. Masseria's right-hand man and Joe Bonanno's arch-enemy, Charles Lucky Luciano, took control of the chaos.
Charlie Lucky was an Americanized product, born in Sicily, but came over here at a very early age. So he and his friends decided that the shooting that was going on wasn't good for business.
So Luciano orchestrated the assassination of his own boss, Masseria, in order to make peace with Joe's boss, Maranzano. After the killing, Joe and the other major New York gangsters all attended a crucial meeting hosted by Al Capone at the Congress Hotel in Chicago.
The conclusion of that meeting was the establishment of un comitato di pace, which was a committee for peace. However, because there were some Americanized guys that couldn't say the words correctly, they decided to say, well, let's call it the commission.
Joe's boss, Maranzano, pushed through his plan for a syndicate of mafia families that would function like the Roman military led by Caesar. The other leaders quickly realized they had replaced one despot for another. 4 months later, Lucky had Maranzano killed as well. With his boss dead, Joe decided the best course was not to avenge the murder, but to make peace with Lucky Luciano.
There was a meeting in 1931 between my father and Luciano, where my father said, I have no reason to have any problems with you. Do you have any problems with me? They agreed to a peace.
It was a peace agreement with a huge dividend for the career of Joe Bonanno.
He's perfectly happy with the outcome, which is it delivers the family that had belonged to Maranzano to Joe Bonanno. So all of a sudden, at the age of 26, he's a mafia boss.
In keeping with his Sicilian tradition, Joe became a father, and his fellow immigrants were his family. Then Bonanno and Luciano created a new commission, which would hold sway in the underworld for the next half a century.
The commission works beautifully for decades because there is no big boss. It's 7 top mafia guys, and they meet every 5 years, and they just operate by consensus.
With the war behind him, Joe Bonanno married the patient Fay Labruzzo in 1931, almost 2 years after their original wedding date. At the ceremony, several of the bridegrooms carried pistols under their tuxedos in case of surprise visitors. A year later, Joe and Fay had a son. They named him Salvatore, after the baby's grandfather.